After 8 months of using Lovable and V0, we eliminated a service that made us $3,000 to $7,000 per project. And here's why we did it. Here's what we do right now, and exactly how our development process has changed because of these AI tools. I'm Rohan Savant. I run Ionio, and over the last 5 years, since 2021, we have helped our clients build and launch AI and SaaS products. And this means everything end to end, from coming up with the idea, wireframing, UI, UX, and to building and launching a product and getting into revenue. We have done basically all stages of AI product development, and you can see all of our work on our site. There are like a dozen video testimonials. There are like hundreds of blogs and stuff. Like, we have a lot of work. So 2021, 2022, let me take you back to how we used to work with our clients. When a client came to us with an idea for a SaaS or an AI product, here's what the process looked like back then. They would have an idea, maybe just a concept or a basic outline, and then we would spend hours with them, first creating detailed wireframes, then sitting in Figma for days, creating UI UX mockups for every single screen. And look at our Google Drive here. You can see we just have like dozens of wireframes for all of the projects that we have done over the years. And same with our Figma account. We just have these just Figma files going over all of the work that we have done, right? And this wasn't like quick work. For every single project, I would personally spend at least a week. For smaller projects, for mid-sized one, like 2 weeks, creating UI UX mockups. And then clients paid us anywhere between $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 just for design. And this was before we got to write even a single line of code. And this entire process was really meaningful and fun back then, because there was no way before where they had seen it turn into a concrete visual screen, and clients just like really loved this part of the process. And you can of course see our testimonials where clients were really happy with all of this, so that they got screens that they could really see and touch. And this was like magic to most founders and small companies. They would come to us with, hey, I want to build a CRM for doctors, and we were to take that and turn it into 15, 20, 25 detailed wireframes and then UI UX mockups going over every single feature in the app, like every single feature in the app. We did that, right? But fundamentally, the process was slow and expensive and honestly unnecessary for most B2B MVPs, because B2B customers, they care more about if the app solves your problem rather than the perfect drop shadow, the perfect colors and all of that. But without tools like Lovable or V0, you had no choice. Someone had to actually sit down and then design every single screen like manually. Then 2023, 2024, Lovable and V0 appeared, and they promised that you could build apps in a single prompt. And when everyone knows that that's not really true, that doesn't happen. You can't just launch something from Lovable. But something really interesting started happening with our clients, especially early stage founders and non-technical C-suites. They started coming to us with something different. So instead of just ideas, they would show up with actual working prototypes. And when I first saw it, I was like, wow, that's interesting. That kind of does what you would have paid me to do. But yeah, I mean, a prospect came to us to our first meeting, and instead of saying, hey, I have this idea, they just shared their screen and they showed us a prototype of Lovable. So basically, they had ChatGPT'd a PRD, put it into Lovable. Lovable would build kind of like a functional UI for it, and then they would just say, hey, look at this thing that I have built. I have this basic app, and can you complete this? Can you turn this into a real app with database authentication and it's like backend functionality and all of that, right? So this completely flipped our sales process. So instead of needing to spend weeks trying to convince them that, hey, this is the app, this is what it would look like, they essentially already had half-built apps. So here is what we've started doing now. When a client comes to us with the project, here's our new process. And this is again something that you can steal as well in your company if you are building a lot of these internal tools or building a lot of MVPs. We take the PRD from ChatGPT and we run it through both Lovable and V0. Why both? Because Lovable creates comprehensive apps with lots of functionality, but the UI still kind of looks like it's from 2019. The functionality is there, but it doesn't look modern. But V0, since Versal has built it, the UI looks a little bit more beautiful and modern, the way you would actually want a SaaS to look like in 2025. And in some cases, we already get 90 or 95% way there, and we just stop. But in other cases, when the SaaS is a bigger project, we take screenshots from Lovable and V0 and we add them in our wireframing tool. We use Draw.io or diagrams.net in our company. So instead of spending days on wireframing and creating UI UX mockups, we get to 90% in just like a few hours. Now, depending on the type of the client and the project that we are dealing with, for mid-sized SaaS projects, we export everything out of Lovable and then we completely rebuild it using our standard tech stack by using Cursor for development, Tailwind for styling, React for the front end, and then Shard CN for the actual components. So the reason behind this rebuild is that the code from these AI code generation tools looks okay on the front end, but under the hood, sometimes the code quality is not where we personally want them to be for the project that might run for the next 5 years. But for micro SaaS projects, smaller apps, where the client just wants to validate the idea and get it to 3 to 5, maybe, $10,000 in monthly revenue, we do something completely different. We keep everything in Lovable, not just the front end, but we actually also prompt Lovable to build the back end. And again, this sounds kind of crazy to the traditional devs, but if you're already 90 or 95% of the way there inside Lovable, exporting it out and rebuilding it to traditional code for a micro SaaS doesn't really make sense. So we just connect Lovable to GitHub directly, so all of the code is properly versioned as well. And we make changes wherever we need to make changes. And we either use Lovable's editor for this, or we just manually copy paste files in. This process takes us anywhere between minimum 7 days to like 10 days. And the advantage for the client here is he never actually needs to depend on any developers ever to make small changes in the project. So everything still stays inside Lovable. But even for these smaller projects, right, we always do the payment integration by hand. We check if the database structure and the authentication is set up properly, and if we actually do need to add unit tests anywhere. So we do these 3 or 4 things on top of the Lovable code inside Lovable so that you get best of both worlds. Back in January of 2025 was when we finally stopped doing all of the wireframes and UI UX mockups for our MVP projects. There was just simply no point in doing that. So instead now we focus on things that these tools can't do really easily. Complex backend integrations, worker and master, Redis, Kubernetes, and all these like different complex workflows, Docker containers, like all of that is not on Lovable yet. We let the front end be Lovable, and on the back end we still use Cursor for development, but we have actual Express Python microservices on the backend. Our clients are happier because they get to see and interact with the ideas immediately. We are happier because we are able to do more projects faster, and our time has gone down from being 8 to 12 weeks in 2023, now down to 2 to 6 weeks for most of our projects. Here is one more way we use Lovable and V0 and how these tools have transformed our business in a way I didn't expect, specifically our sales process. In consulting, we often recommend companies to build custom systems to solve specific problems. And before Lovable and V0, when we kind of pitched these projects, we would just have a very detailed, like a textual PDF going over what was going to be built. It pretty much felt like vaporware. So imagine trying to sell like a $50,000 custom development project, but no one knows what it looks like, right? And you're just asking the clients to visualize something that doesn't exist. But just trust me, bro, like I know what you need, I'm going to deliver it. Something like that. But now when we show up to calls, we just show up to them with working V0 and Lovable demos. Our proposals include these demos as well. So clients just see what they are paying for before it actually gets built. Last month, we pitched a custom CRM project to one of the largest companies in the construction space. And the first version would have been a $20, $25, maybe $30,000 project. And we pitched this in collaboration with another partner. But instead of just describing the system in a textual document, we walked them through a functional prototype where they could actually click all the buttons. They would see how the data would flow throughout the system, what the dashboard would look like, what the different CRM screens would look like. So they got to experience the user journey firsthand. And of course, it was not hooked up to anything on the backend. It was not hooked up to like a database. But like previously, we had to build the UI UX mockups. Our clients use these UI UX mockups in the way that we are using them right now. But we just got there 2 weeks faster without needing to spend all of that money, resources, and time. So yeah, super underrated, showing people what they're paying for before they actually pay for it. So code has become cheap. Our development time is now down from, as I said, 8 to 12 weeks down to 2 to 6. So for micro SaaS, sometimes we get done in just 2 weeks. And that's not even an exaggeration. This is actually true. We have built entire chatbots and then SaaSes in half a dozen industries at breakneck speeds in the last like 8 months. But of course, the sweet spot for using these tools, we have found it to be, is to use them as not a single junior developer, but as teams of junior developers who can mock things out very quickly before you actually start building them. Then you have senior engineers actually build out the actual thing. And of course, Claude Code and Cursor, all of these tools, they also step in to just give the senior engineer, the human engineer, more leverage. That's how we have been using these tools internally. And you might probably be wondering, all of that work that we did, right? All of the expertise that we built up in doing UI UXs for the last 3-ish, 4-ish years. Was all of that unnecessary? Well, yeah, yes, like technically yes. Like UI UX development and then front end side of things is mostly just gone. There is a little point in doing it anymore. You pretty much just are expected to show up like Rick Rubin and kind of like use intuition to just tell the thing what the UI should look like. There is no real need to actually go in and get your hands dirty anymore for most SaaSes in the MVP space. So are we sad that now we can't charge $7,000 for a few weeks worth of Figma work? Yes. Yeah. I love doing it. It was very fun. I would put on some music and do the Figmas, but it's sad, it's depressing, it's optimized. But yeah, it is what it is. But hey, if you need help with AI, taking over tasks that you love doing, but you want to do them for cheaper and faster, please drop me a message. I'm Rohan Sawant, I run Ionio. We help companies build projects. Yeah, projects, software projects. That's it. Thanks. Bye-bye.